Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Storytime with BDD. I'm your host, BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad. Now, if you happen to be watching and you saw a split screen and you saw a handsome young man to my right sitting in his car, well, fun fact. Full disclosure, there was a scheduling mix up on my part that led me to reach out to this next guest in a panic, and thankfully he agreed, but he's in hot demand because there are issues going on in our country right now that require his specific blend of knowledge and experience. I'm speaking about the Roe v. Wade, the danger to Roe v. Wade. And my next guest is the co-founder of Men for Choice, which is an organization dedicated to bringing men into the fight and teaching us how to be proper allies in this fight. I'd like to welcome Oren Jacobson. Oren, welcome to the show.
Good to see you, BDD. Thanks for having me. Apologize to everybody for being in the car, but in light of the news this week, there are events happening all over, and I am doing 2 Zoom calls from the car for the next hour, and then going to an event here not too far away from me in Chicago, Illinois, to rally more support for the work ahead.
Okay, so you are in a safe place, right? We don't have to worry about somebody sideswiping you.
I'm safe-ish. I'm as safe as I'm going to be, I think. So we're all right. I'm not driving. I'm parked and I'm focused.
Excellent. Well, thank you for again for agreeing to be on the show in such short notice. So yeah, let's go back a few days to when the news first dropped of this leaked draft from the Supreme Court. Was this one of those moments for you when when you first heard the news? You know, people say when things happen like 9/11 or
Yes.
JFK assassination, you remember exactly what you were doing and where you were.
I'll never forget. So I have a 15-month-old son, and my wife was out of town, and so I was doing solo daddy duty that night. You know, bedtime, bath time, the whole 9 yards. And I was giving him a bottle, and was rocking him in this gray chair we have in his room, and all of a sudden my phone just started going berserk, and it was in my pocket. And there's no reason for me to be getting an endless string of text messages at 8 p.m. in the evening. And when I finally put him down in the crib and I picked up my phone and looked at what was on there, both in terms of the breaking news as well as the string of text messages from partners and from our Men for Choice team and from fellows and interns asking, what do we do? I'll remember that scene in that moment of my phone blowing up as I'm rocking my 15-month-old son to sleep and putting him down and picking up that phone and knowing the world, the things that we had feared for a long time were coming true and the world had changed.
So prior to then, you you didn't have any inkling of an idea that they would be trying to do this sort of thing as soon as they did.
So what I obviously wasn't anticipating was the leak of the draft, right? I mean, we've been Men for Choice is part of several coalitions that are focused on decision day response, right? What do you do when the decision actually comes down? But all that planning has been for June, really towards the end of June, assuming that the court wouldn't release the decision until the very end of the docket. So on the one hand, not prepared at all to respond to a leak that basically says the court at that point had voted to overturn Roe v. Wade in a full and extreme way. That said, I will tell you that at the Men for Choice level, like what we do in our work, we're not surprised at all. And we have been operating for several years now under the assumption that Roe v. Wade would be overturned. meaning our strategy was grounded in the notion that Roe v.
Hmm.
Wade would be overturned. And I should also say, especially for the men who are listening who may not have been paying as much attention to the issue maybe before a couple days ago. The reality is that Roe v. Wade is functionally irrelevant in so many states across the country because it's been chipped away so aggressively to where the right to an abortion may exist in every state in the country.
Hmm.
But the ability to access that right is incredibly burdensome. And in some states like Mississippi, there's only one abortion clinic for the entire state. Obviously, in a state like Texas, we're aware now that SB 8 right passed last summer, and an abortion is illegal or is banned after 6 weeks. And by the way, for the guys out there, let's talk about what 6 weeks actually means. 6 weeks is
Yeah.
not, I know I'm pregnant for 6 weeks. 6 weeks is 6 weeks since my last period started, since my cycle started. So that really means 2 weeks after you're supposed to have had your period. And any guy who's ever talked to a girlfriend or their wife or a
Hmm.
friend about their cycle knows
Hmm.
that lots of people aren't regular, meaning most people don't actually know that they're pregnant at the time that 6 weeks comes up. I'm getting into some minutia, but the long story short is this has been the expectation for those of us working on the issue, in large part because we knew the goal of the movement was to overturn Roe v. Wade and then to ban and criminalize abortion across the country.
Well, so I appreciate the minutia that you got into, because it's a very valid point. Is that the restrictions that they've put on these laws and on these time frames, these arbitrary, most people don't know whether they're pregnant or not, so they are in effect taking that right
Yeah.
away, um, with
Yeah.
through the law.
I was
And
super confused when my wife told me she was 8 weeks pregnant because the math didn't work. She's like, we're pregnant. I'm like, seriously? And she's like, yeah, I'm 8 weeks along. And I'm like, how is that possible? I was, this was 2 years ago. That's,
yeah.
and I'm 40 now. So I was 38 years old before I understood anything about the weeks.
Hmm. Now, let me just take you back
Yeah.
a couple of minutes,
Yeah.
when you said that you and Men for Choice. First of all,
Right.
but before I get into this, what made you decide to form or
Yeah.
co-found Men for
Yeah.
Choice? What was it for you?
I was sitting in the back of a room 7 years ago in the spring of 2015, listening to a woman who works nationally in this movement give a 7-minute presentation about
Hmm.
the state of abortion rights across America. And in 7 minutes, I just had an oh shit moment.
Yeah.
And it was sort of, I don't remember exactly what she said or what the graphic that was put on screen. I was like, I can't believe this is a thing. Right. And keep
Hmm.
in mind, at the time, I lived in Chicago. Barack Obama was president. Donald Trump had not come down the escalator yet. And so, like most men who identify themselves as pro-choice,
Right.
I thought Roe v. Wade is settled law. You're cool. Like, this is cool. We got it. It's all right. Not my issue. And when in 7 minutes she laid out exactly what was happening across the country, I just was like, holy shit. And for me at that point in time, I started to wonder how it was that I didn't know as somebody who was pretty politically active. And then I started to wonder if someone who's like me, who's politically active, doesn't know, what does the average guy know?
Right.
And then I just
Right.
started going down this line of questions. And then I started going with her to events, fundraisers and different things. And I looked around the room and I saw who was in the room. And it was, not a lot of men. It was mostly women.
Hmm.
And then I just started asking this other question, which was, is there something that I can do to help change that?
Yeah.
And a group of political organizers in Illinois, all of whom are, pro-choice male allies, decided to see if we could do that. And we just started organizing. And now, 7 years later, we have a nonprofit arm, an advocacy arm, and we do organizing work in multiple states. We run fellowship programs to train young allies, and we work to bring more male identifying folk into the fight as allies and partners to support impacted individuals and the leaders of the movement with an emphasis on the state level.
I noticed you said male identifying, which
Yeah,
I don't want to like lose the focus on that, but I do know that I know that that is an important issue
yeah,
for your work with Men for Choice.
yeah.
Are you able to explain why that
Yeah.
is?
So to be clear, right? Like we're focused on a very specific question, which is how do you get men who say they're pro-choice, but are mostly doing nothing to
Mhm.
support the fight,
Right.
to do something to support the fight? That's the question for us. We don't spend any time wondering how to convince, our Uncle Gary at the Thanksgiving table that he's wrong about abortion. We think
Hmm.
about how do I get BDD to do a little bit more.
Right.
That's the question for us. So it's really about turning passive pro-choice men into active pro-choice allies, with the recognition that anti-abortion men are using every ounce of their power
Hmm.
to attack other people's right to control the most fundamental aspect of their life, which is their body, and the most
Yeah.
important decision that any person can make, which is the decision whether, if, how, when to have or not have children. And so, what we're trying to do is get pro choice men off the sidelines and into this fight as partners, as allies, not as saviors, not as
Hmm.
leaders, but as partners to support the amazing women and impacted individuals that are doing this work and have been carrying this burden, by the way, mostly alone for decades, yelling at us, not like yelling
Hmm.
at us, but screaming to the world that this day would come. And most of us, if we're being honest, most of us didn't take that too seriously, whether it was a lack of imagination, whether it's, you know, uh, the reality of the problematic habits of men to dismiss the voices of women. Most of us didn't listen, and so we're trying to get more men to start listening and to start acting and to start advocating.
Oren, how many men do you have um, in the organization? Do you have a rough figure?
Yeah, so we're not a membership organization, so we're not like making you pay a due to call yourself a man for choice or something like that. I
Uh,
can give you a little bit of idea of the following of the organization. Our email list is roughly 20,000 wide. It's obviously not all men, but it's a good proportion. We've got
mhm.
about 60,000 followers on social media, and that list is about 50 in terms of gender identity split, which is a really, really unique audience in the movement.
Yeah.
And then, I would say beneath that, there's somewhere between 1,000 and maybe 2,000 at the high end, men who I would say over the last 7 years have taken what I would define to be like meaningful action alongside us and with partners. The thing that I'm most proud of that we're working on right now is that a couple years ago we launched a fellowship program for young men, for college age youth, a youth
Oh,
slash college fellowship program.
the
And actually
bros.
tomorrow night we are graduating 17 spring fellows. And over the last 4 weeks, those 17 spring fellows have hosted 55 different events,
Wow.
bringing just their buddies, just the men in their life into conversation, into hour-long conversation with members of our staff and our team. And we're talking about literally hundreds of new men who have had meaningful engagement with Men for Choice in the last 10 weeks. We have a new fellowship class that we're getting ready to launch for the summer. And then our goal is to take all of these fellows and all of the friends that they've introduced to the organization and to this work. And in the fall, in particular, when it's about talking to voters about these issues, we're going to mobilize those allies into the fight in support of partners at the state level. So take Georgia as an example, which is on the front line of this and so many other fights in our democracy. We're going to try to organize men in Georgia to knock
Mm.
doors, to text bank, to phone bank. And the way that we're going to do that is to turn to the leaders of the movement in Georgia and say, Planned Parenthood, where can you use our help? Where should we show up? Who should we be talking to? We'll bring them. Just tell us where and when. You got a phone bank on Saturday? We'll bring them.
This is fantastic. This is, I mean,
Yeah,
it's amazing. What I love the idea that you are getting the young men involved, engaged, because they can tend to be very energetic, and when they are passionate about something, they're all in. And
yeah,
that enthusiasm just carries over, just bleeds over to
yeah,
everyone in their surroundings.
yeah,
Um, you said maybe about 10-15 minutes ago, you had said that you anticipated this happening. So my question is, does Men for Choice have some kind of break glass in case of emergency series of, I don't mean, I'm not, not
yeah,
trying to, make
yeah,
fun
yeah.
or
I
anything,
get what
but
you're
like,
saying.
some
Yeah,
contingency plans. So, okay, guys, that thing we were talking about happening, it's happening. So now
yeah.
let's go with plan A.
So for us, the answer to that question is no. In large part because our entire strategy has been set up around this, both happening and already in many ways already having happened. Meaning, in something like 24, 25, 26 states in the country, people live in a post-Roe reality. I mean, like I said, you can technically legally get an abortion, but you've got to jump a ton of hurdles.
Hmm.
Um, you may have to drive hundreds of miles. You may have to see the doctor, wait there for 72 hours, and come back. Like
Right.
excessive hurdles that, by the way, are totally unnecessary. It's actually more dangerous to give birth in America than it is to have an abortion in America. And so, in knowing that, we built our strategy around that reality. And the way that we think about our work, because we're, you know, BDD, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this, but Men for Choice is a relatively small nonprofit organization that's not all that important in the grand scheme of this situation. So we have talked we've talked about how do we orient our work in a way that can be most impactful to the women and impacted individuals leading this movement. And for us, we think about two things. And the first is, how do we help change the culture? Meaning, how do we change the way men are thinking, speaking, and engaging on this issue in the first place? Because at the core of policy is always culture. If you think
Hmm.
about this question culturally, and I'll get to number two in a second, we live in a country that tolerates the idea of a legislature that is composed mostly of men passing laws to control the bodies of women, trans folks, non binary folks as legitimate. And
Hmm.
then we treat the idea that a court can rule on the laws that those men, that a male dominated court can then rule on the laws that those men passed to control women's bodies. We treat that as legitimate. That is a cultural reality, that we tolerate that we think it's just and moral and fair and appropriate and acceptable. And
Hmm.
to me, that's a really shallow version of what freedom is. The idea
Yeah.
that men can do this, because that's what I'm not saying you and I and all men, and then not all men are
Right.
responsible for this. And it's not just men who are responsible for this, but we have to deal with that cultural reality. And so that's piece one. And piece two is knowing that this fight really is happening at the state level because we saw what the court was doing. We saw the composition of the court. We saw Roe being gutted step after step after step. We knew that the fight was going to be at the state level, and we knew that means you have to win elections at the state level
Hmm.
in order to put different elected officials in place so that you could pass new laws at the state level because the federal government wasn't going to protect you anymore. And so that's why I said that our strategy is the same today as it was yesterday, because our strategy has been built for this. It's been thinking about the long fight ahead and how we can help play a small but meaningful role in changing the culture and adding power to the movement by bringing new volunteers, new activists, so that we can contact more voters and turn more people out to the polls and win more swing seats. And then with more seats, eventually you can pass laws. Now that said, I want to say to every man listening that there is a very necessary break glass in case of emergency situation right now. And I need you to go online and contribute, not to Men for Choice. Do not send $1 to us today. Donate to abortion funds. Go to your Google right now and look up National Abortion Funds. donate to a local abortion fund, because there are going to be people across this country who have to access an abortion who aren't going to be able to access it in the state that they live in, and that's going to require them to travel. And they're going to need financial support, because guess what? The rich people, the wealthy people, they're going to get on planes.
Yep.
Low income people, people of color disproportionately, rural people, rural folks who don't live close to good healthcare systems as it is, Black and brown folks from disinvested communities who are disproportionately likely to be low income. They're going to need resources and support. And so anything that you, especially as a man, can do today, $1, $5, $10, if you're really privileged, give more to abortion funds, please do.
Oren, I want to hop onto the Men for Choice website for a minute here. Can you
Yeah.
see that there?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've been spending some time looking at this. I think it's great. I like this. Under the resources, you have the Get Your Starter Kit,
Yeah.
which I've actually downloaded.
Awesome.
Um,
And by the way, there's a
this,
Spanish language version too.
oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
This is funny. This is It's time to call bullshit.
Yeah.
Explain this tab, please.
Yeah. So look, part of the challenge that we have is how do we break through with our buddies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is that we got to talk to our boys the way that we talk to our boys. And BDD, when you say something stupid, what do? I said, BDD, that's
You call
bullshit.
me out on my bullshit.
I call you out on your bullshit.
Right.
So
right.
the whole idea is to help more men recognize that what these guys are doing, what I mean is what guys like Mike Pence and Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump and Greg Abbott and Justice Samuel Alito, what these guys are doing is total and absolute bullshit. And it's time for guys like us to call it what it is. The nice thing about this campaign is that one of the things that many well-intentioned pro-choice men struggle with is, what do I do? How do I do this right? I don't want to step on I don't want to step on other people's toes. I don't want to be the wrong kind of ally. And so when any of us, if I don't feel comfortable about how to engage my white identifying friends about issues of race as an ally in the fight for racial justice, I will not engage. And if I, as a male ally, don't know what to say to my peers about abortion rights and abortion access, I will not engage. And so the nice thing about the Call Bullshit campaign is that it orients all of us in the right direction, which is to say, if nothing else, call out the assholes. Call out the assholes for their bullshit. Because if you, as a man, start calling out the bullshit, you're going to start changing the culture of the people around you by saying what they're doing is not okay.
So your work, it's not. I'm not hearing or seeing any kind of magic bullet. What I'm seeing is hard fucking,
for sure.
like one day at a time, one person at a time, converting people, educating people, spreading the word. Right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But look, BDD, this is the secret of organizing, right? The secret of organizing is that it is one day at a time. If somebody wants to know what organizing is talking to one person and then talking to another person and then talking to another person. And hopefully along the way, one of the people you talk to starts talking to somebody else. So like our fellowship program is a great example of this. We literally go recruit young emerging leaders. And then we bring them in and we say, okay, we're going to teach you how to do this. And your job is to go recruit your friends. And then we spend time with their friends and we identify leaders amongst their cohorts and their peers. And then we rinse and repeat. But that's what this work is, especially on an issue like this, where, let's be honest, men don't fully understand the harm. They don't fully understand the pain that's being caused here. They treat it as a gendered issue. It's not my issue. It's a woman's issue. A lot of pro-choice men carry a stigma about abortion. They think abortion is wrong or shameful. So you have to deal with that. They don't see a natural place. Like where does a man go? Right? Men go where men are. Right? Like you and I go to the bar or go to the ball game or go to do the things we like to do with our boys. So you got to give them a place to come together, and they need a game plan. So like you've got a lot to work through on an individual level, even for the average pro-choice man, to get them over the hurdle. And look, in saying that, I want to acknowledge that if I'm a woman hearing this, I would be incredibly frustrated, because in some ways what I'm saying is everything that they've been saying to their friends, to the men in their life, has not been heard. And I need to acknowledge that part of the reason we're here is because we haven't been listening, as I said up front. And at the same time, at Men for Choice, as organizers, we have to deal with where people are, and we have to engage in that work. And we are training more men like us to do that work, to pick up the phone and to call their friend and to talk through the issues that I just mentioned, to help shift their framework, to help them understand the pain that's being caused, the harm to individuals, to change the framework that this is somehow a woman's issue or it's gendered, to help them understand that this is really a fight about freedom and power and control, the fact that no person can be free, BDD, if they don't control their own body, to
Mm-hmm.
recognize that men are stakeholders in this fight too, right?
Right.
Like I don't have any say whatsoever over what my wife wants to do ultimately in terms of having another child.
Yeah.
But within the context of a healthy relationship, there's no more important conversation or decision about
You guys are going to
inside of
discuss
that.
that. Sure.
Yeah, and it's a conversation, right? And you and I should never have the majority share of that vote,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, but in a healthy relationship, it's absolutely a discussion between two people about whether, if, how, when to have kids or not have kids.
Right.
And so what every man needs to also understand, and by the way, like I want you to be in this because you think it's bullshit and you think it's wrong and you see people being hurt and you're going to stand up because even if you had nothing to gain or nothing to lose, but I want to be clear, if the government can control your partner's body, the government can control your family.
Oren, do you have any goals for Men for Choice? Any goals in terms of actual benchmarks or actual legal things or
Yeah.
growth?
So
What are the
our strategy in terms of like legal things is like that's dictated by our partners, meaning whatever the coalition locally, whether it's in Illinois or Florida or Georgia, says matters most to them is the thing that matters most to us.
Mhm.
So whatever they say matters is what matters to us. Um, in terms of like the internal structure of the organization, you know, we have some benchmarks around how many fellows we want in every cohort, how many men we want them to engage, how many new volunteers we activate, how many events we host, how many voters we contact.
Mhm.
And then we just keep trying to push that further and further along in the best way that we can, with the hope being that eventually, and I want to be clear, eventually this organization shouldn't exist. Like it doesn't
That's right.
need to
That's
exist in
right. In a perfect
perpetuity.
world.
So if you
In
said to
the
me,
perfect
Oren,
world, there's no need.
what's your real goal? My real goal would be for Men for Choice not to need to exist, because you and I would just step up and go to a Sister Song event, go to a Planned Parenthood event, show up at the Midwest Access Coalition fundraiser, go to the Chicago Abortion Bowl-a-thon, and like we wouldn't need organizers like us to spend 30 minutes in a conversation with you working through all the hurdles in the way of you being an active ally, because you just saw another human being tell you, this is hurting me. This robs me of my right to control my body. This robs me of my dignity. This is dehumanizing and demeaning and patronizing and paternalistic and misogynistic and racist. And it
Mhm.
treats me as less than. And it puts me and my family in a bad situation. And it puts my life at risk. And it hurts my children. And that would be enough. That should be enough. And I as I said before, if I was listening, sometimes I say this, if I was listening to the things that I just told you that we do to try to get men to show up, I think that I would be angry.
Yeah.
And I recognize that, and I'm deeply sorry about that, but um, we're going to keep doing the work.
Are there any plans for you and your organization to show up at a protest rally in DC or around the country?
So I might personally, depending on all the things that happen, my personal decisions are a little bit impacted by having a 15-month at home and a wife who is a doctor,
Mhm.
and so has a very odd schedule. She's an ER doctor, so the last few years have been pretty
Ooh,
interesting for us.
sure.
Um, but we want guys to show up everywhere, and we want guys to show up. You don't need to wear our shirts, or you don't need to like say that you're with us. It doesn't matter. It's not about men for choice. It's about men showing up to support reproductive freedom. I will go anywhere that I am personally invited. We will try to direct people to anything that anybody wants help directing them to. We'll uplift every event we can possibly uplift. And depending on how the next few weeks go and what ends up happening, I could certainly see myself coming to DC this summer for some type of rally or protest to be in the crowd. And I have done that many times before, out of a feeling that I want to be there as a witness and to listen and to hear from the voices of those most impacted, so that when I step back into my work trying to get other men to follow those voices, that I can internalize their message, their emotion, their feeling, their fear, their anger, and pass that on in the best way that I can.
Are there reasons for us to feel optimistic about the future in this regard? The
Look,
immediate future,
the immediate future, meaning like, so I think on the one hand, it's possible that the ruling we saw is not it's not the final ruling. It may not be the
right?
final ruling. So who knows, you know, what the final ruling would be. It seems unlikely, regardless of the language of the ruling, that you're going to see a decision not to overturn Roe, um, in short order. So I can't really speak to optimism on the part of what's going to happen vis-a-vis this issue in the short term. But I will say this: um, the story, the story of America is a two-sided coin. On the one side of that coin is a lot of pain being caused to a whole lot of people,
Hmm.
um, usually surrounding the fight for equality and freedom. And on the other side of that coin are long, slow, hard movements that have changed the understanding and the nature of freedom. And we are absolutely on that side of this coin. And I'm convinced that in the long run, we're going to win because this is a pro choice nation. It's an overwhelmingly pro choice nation.
Yeah.
And so that will not take away the tremendous pain. And BDD, I have to jump to this other Zoom, but let me finish this.
Yeah.
That will not take away the tremendous pain that is going to happen for people between now and then. Which again, go donate to an abortion fund. And if you're a man, please sign up on our website, stay engaged, and start showing up. It won't change the tremendous pain, but we can also look back at the history of this country and recognize that we have actually changed the face, the meaning, the understanding of what freedom means. And so I'm convinced that at some point in the future, we're going to have a new definition of freedom, and a definition of freedom that says no person can be free if they do not control their own body, their own health care, and their own reproductive decisions. But that is not a future that will magically appear. It is a future that will be created. And I know that many people on our side of the political equation may be feeling demoralized right now and may be convinced that we're not going to win in the midterms. If you're convinced we're not going to win in the midterms, we're not going to win in the midterms. If you're convinced we're not
Mhm.
going to win in 2024, we're not going to win in 2024. But if you're willing to work to create the future that we want,
Yeah.
ever fixed on the future that we want, and offer that positive, optimistic vision to each other, to other people, we can create it. In large part because we have had dark moments, uh, and we have gotten in other places. And my last piece, BDD, is we have no other choice. We have to.
Oren, my dude, I know you have to jam, so I want to say thank you again for joining me on Storytime with BDD. Secondly, dude, you are a beautiful speaker. I have to tell you this. I mean, uh, you need to be in politics. You need to be like a congressman or a senator. You're like that level
Well,
speaker.
that's
Excellent,
a heck of a
excellent level.
compliment. But what we need now most are advocates. We need advocates. We need organizers, and all of us can be leaders, and all of us can change somebody's mind and can do the work. So let's do it together.
You guys, this is Oren's Twitter handle here, Oren_Jacobson on Twitter. Follow him. He's a very smart guy, one of the smartest guys I know. And menforchoice.org. Check him out there. Thank you so much for joining us, Oren. And I think
BDD, appreciate you.
Oh, okay, buddy. I'll see you
I'm
soon.
out.
Talk to you
I'm
soon.
out. Yep.
All right. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that was quite a talk from our friend Oren, and it is giving me some stuff to think about. Like, am I involved enough? I like the last piece he was saying about if you think uh, if you think we're going to lose in the midterms, we're going to lose. If you think we're going to lose in 2024, we're going to lose in 2024. It's all up here. It's all, you have to be in it to win it. Here's Wilbur McCarthy saying failure in 2022 and 2024 is not an option for us. Yeah, seriously, because let's see what happens if you just take a defeatist attitude, and everybody has a defeatist attitude. That defeatist attitude, it carries on to other people, carries on. It gets people down. So it's a choice. You can choose to be optimistic about the future. You can choose, if you believe that your actions, whether it's talking to somebody online at the supermarket, literally something as small as that, because we all make connections with people, and you don't even realize that connection you make. You're sitting next to somebody on an airplane going somewhere, and maybe you guys talk for an hour or so. That person gets off that airplane and goes and talks to their family and say, I was talking to somebody on the plane and they said blah 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 blah. And if you say just the right thing, could be anything, you say one thing, change a heart, change a mind. It is possible. So let's see. So as I said earlier, this today I thought I was meeting with I thought I was meeting with Marcus Flowers. Marcus Flowers is the representative, or excuse me, he's running to replace Marjorie Taylor Greene. That is next week, next Wednesday. And I was informed by his campaign manager. She was like, "Nope, it's not today. It's next week." I was like, "Go!" So I called up Oren, and he was more than happy to fill in for Marcus, and I really appreciate that. This is something that I think should galvanize the Democratic Party. I mean, if it wasn't the Rick Scott plan to tax more Americans and to kill Social Security, then okay, maybe taking away women's rights. And like I said before, it's not for me. It's for all the women that I know, all the women that I will never know. It's for my daughter. It's for my granddaughter, who does not yet exist, but possibly might exist at some point. Um, we can't accept this. We cannot accept this. Just, old white men deciding what a woman can do with their body. It is outrageous. It's outrageous. If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. Seriously, I posted a tweet earlier today saying that if you're going to seriously talk about legislating what a woman can and cannot do with her body, then castration and what's the other one? Castration and I can't remember what the hell they do when they snip somebody. so they can't have babies. It has literally slipped my brain. Um, but anyway, yeah, uh, castration should definitely be in the conversation. Somebody help me out here. What is the thing that they do? It's a contraceptive. There's a V in there. Vasectomy. Thank you. God damn it. Yeah. Vasectomy and castration needs to be in there as well. Some other random stuff is happening today. Matt Gaetz opened his big fat 5-head trap talking about an overeducated woman. It was bizarre. It was very peculiar. Hang on, let's see if I can pull that up on the screen here. Let's share screen and let's go to that Chrome tab. It's here. Let's go here. Share. Okay, so we'll go to my profile. Oh, look at this. This is me. This is me right now. Here we go. He says, how many of the women rallying against overturning Roe are overeducated, underloved millennials who sadly returned from protests to a lonely microwave dinner with their cats and no Bumble matches? First of all, that is weirdly specific. But secondly, what is overeducated? What is overeducated? A woman who, can read at a 10th grade level? Seriously, wouldn't you, don't you want your mate to be educated? Don't you want her to be smart? And secondly, why is this jackass still not in prison? He's supposedly Captain Venmo, supposedly paid to have sex with underage girls, which we call rape. In most civilized company, we call that rape, statutory rape, or whatever it is. It's rape. Bumble is one of those things like you swipe left or swipe right. Tinder, it's like one of those things. I've seen some weird stuff on Twitter today. I saw Don Jr. On another one of his high speed cocaine fueled rants, and it's really sad for me to see that as somebody myself who has struggled with drug addiction. I know it's no joke, but it's weird. This guy, he's connected to some of the most affluent and powerful people, in the country, and is nobody in his corner pushing him to get some help. That's weird. It's weird. You would think, one person, not even one person, can tell him, look, you just go to this, just chill out, just go to this rehab over here. I don't have a problem. I can stop whenever I want. Nobody cares, as Lee Saunders says. Nobody cares. And Punxsutawney Mo says, Donnie Boy testified today by Zoom. It'd be interesting to see if he gave any useful information in that testimony. What else? I heard that Kim Kardashian, apparently, her ex, long time ago ex, this guy named Ray J. And trust me when I tell you that I never really want to know about the Kardashians. I've never watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I don't give a damn, but it's news. It's kind of news. And apparently this guy Ray J came out of the woodworks and said that infamous sex tape that came out was intentional. It wasn't leaked. I mean, it was intentionally leaked. It's not something that was a mistake. They planned it. Apparently, they planned it along with Kris Jenner. Kris Kardashian, I guess, is the matriarch of that family. Um, yeah. So on the one hand, I don't care. On the other hand, I don't care, except I mean, what does that mean? It means, she otherwise she would not have been a celebrity. Who even gives a damn about that goddamn sex tape? Apparently, uh, they made combined $100 million on that sex tape. $100 million. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of loot. And probably more than that, because the notoriety, the fame, or whatever that she and her family were able to leverage from that, untold millions, maybe billions, because they concocted this plan to show your hoo-ha on a video and let everybody take a look. It is disgusting. Kimberly Mars says, disgusting to sell out your daughter. I agree. It's terrible. Um, and I think the last thing I'm going to comment on is Dave Chappelle was in the news because somebody tried to do a Will Smith on him. He was performing in at the Hollywood Bowl, I believe is the name of the venue, and somebody ran onto stage and attempted to tackle Dave Chappelle, who is not skinny anymore, mind you. Dave Chappelle, he kind of bulked up. He's big dude now, um, and so his attempt was unsuccessful. He was quickly beaten down not only by Dave but also by Dave's entourage. And then I guess the punchline of this is that Chris Rock got on stage with Dave Chappelle and said, "Is that Will Smith?" Which is great because it just means that, Chris Rock has moved past that episode. And I can't wait to see Chris Rock's first, HBO special about that. He could probably spend a whole entire 1 hour or even 2 hour episode just breaking that whole thing down. That should be interesting. Okay, so do we have any questions from you folks out there? Taking a peek here. As I said, today's show is slightly different because I have a whole lot of content prepared, just not for not for Oren. It was for Marcus, Marcus Flowers. I will be interviewing next week, next Wednesday. Chris Rock's Lee Saunders says Chris Rock is in Leeds May 14th. Tickets too expensive. I can imagine he can probably get away with charging $1,000 per ticket. Mitel Cabelli wants to know thoughts on Robert Regan. Robert Regan got his ass beat last night in Michigan, I believe it was, and that is a flipped seat. And it's not a small deal. It's actually a very big deal, Mitel Cabelli. It's a big deal because that was a state that, or a district, excuse me, that Trump won by a lot. So that's good. Mo wants to know, are you and wifey doing gardening this year? Not me and wifey, just wifey. I am definitely not the green thumb. She, on the other hand, is very good at it. She's expanded the garden to a whole nother area in our back. And we're growing is growing everything from cucumbers and tomatoes and garlic and I think watermelon. I'm not sure. Da, 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 da. Trump Reaper wants to know, do you have an idea of what it costs to do an episode of Storytime? I have no idea. That's a good question. It's an excellent question. I know one episode usually involves roughly about 8 to 10 or even 12 hours of research. It involves graphic work, the images and sometimes graphic changes to that, promotion, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I couldn't off the top of my head put a number on it, but I will think on it and get back to you. That's an interesting question. Kimberly Moss wants to know, how are you getting all these great interviews? It's not easy. I'll tell you that. It is not easy. Although today I stumbled into that interview with Oren. That was uh, a desperation Hail Mary that I threw to Oren, which really, now that I think about it, like he should have been at the top of my call list. Um, really smart guy. I was so happy to have him on the show. I can't wait to watch the replay of this show because he's very intelligent dude. Cha Cha wants to know, what was the website to donate to help with abortions? I don't remember that he gave a website. If he did, I don't remember it at all. But thank you for that. And yes, Lori Donahue, Marcus Flowers is next Wednesday. Yeah, no, I don't think Ryder Driver was a troll either. In fact, I think they used to be on the show quite a bit back in the day. Okay, Watcher Soko wants to know, has everyone smashed the like button? If you have not done so, please to do so. Thank you for that. He said search Google. Thank you. Shell Teresa said he said to Google, search Google about it. Corey Lord wants to know, are you going to give the Democrats a motivational speech? Mine, for instance, are effective when I control myself. I'll try. I'll try, Corey Lord. I will definitely give that a try. Plan for Mother's Day. I cannot speak on that because some of these plans are top secret. Tiny Pops, our daughter, has asked if we can go and see the new Doctor Strange movie, the Multiverse of Madness, which I absolutely do want to see. And yeah, you guys know I've told you all along that my thing has always been movies, and the big hurdle for me to get over is sitting in a movie theater for 2+ hours in the dark with a bunch of strangers, not knowing, when you hear coughing in the background, who's doing that, and have they been tested? Have they been vaxxed? Who knows? But yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. Damn you! I'm gonna do it. And maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday. We shall see. Ba, 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 da, ba. Jen Murphy says, I'd love to see you going after guest commentator gigs on other television. Any interest in that? Absolutely. Why? Because I like to talk, but somebody's got to ask Brooklyn Dad. Nobody's asked me yet, so we shall see. And Lee Saunders, thank you for the belated birthday. And Mo, that's right. Disney is coming out with Obi-Wan Kenobi. I believe that is May 27th. Yeah, it looks good. I saw the trailer for that. It looks very good. Oh shit, Veronica Tello. That's right. Tonight is the last episode of Moon Knight. And I tried to watch that earlier today, but I couldn't get wifey to sit down and watch it with me. So we'll be watching that later. Indeed. Cha cha with some breaking news here. Cruise ship docked in Seattle with 100 people COVID infected. Well, expect to hear more of this stuff now. COVID, by the way, is kind of running rampant in China, as I understand it. This COVID thing is gonna keep cycling until at some point everybody is either vaccinated, or the people who are slow to get vaxxed, they figure out the hard way that they they should get vaccinated instead of having to have a ventilator tube shoved down your throat. And Lee Saunders has an interesting question. Do you think Ginny Thomas leaked it? I think there's a possibility, strong possibility. She's very troublesome. Um, yeah, she's problematic, and they really do need to investigate her. We already know that she was a very pro insurrection. I don't know why they haven't in investigated her yet. That damn Alaskan says Ozark. Ozark was fantastic. The season finale, the series finale of Ozark is available on Netflix. The performances in that show are outstanding. I'm not going to spoil anything for those of you who have not seen Ozark yet, the series finale. I will say, though, that I was very disappointed with things that transpired on the last episode. Things. So I will say just things. All right, you guys. That's all I got for tonight. Thank you for tuning in for another excellent episode of Storytime with BDD. I'm your host, BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad. And if you have not yet gotten your shot, what are you waiting for? Get that shot. Stick it in your arm, stick it in your eye. I don't care. Just get the shot. Um, Wear a mask if you are so inclined. Keep your social distance 6 feet or better. And I'm doing it like that from now on because I can't be bothered with moving this microphone out of the way. And you guys have a lovely, relaxing evening. As you know, I have scaled back doing the show from 3 days a week to one definite show per week. That's Wednesday. It's going to be the interview show. And occasionally I might have the time and inclination to do one of those late night with BDD episodes. So until then, I will see you same time, same place. I love you all. Peace. Boom. Teresa Plash, so glad to have you back. Welcome back. Wait, so Lee Saunders is saying no music? Oh, dang. Hold on. Hang on. Because I can hear the music playing just fine in my headphones. Let's see. Media. There. That's weird. Very strange. You guys can't hear this, huh? Do, 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 do. I am totally hearing this. Veronica Tello, thank you so much for the kind donation. Hang on. Hang on. Let's see. Let me do this. I'm gonna have to do it the hard way. Story time. Main themes. Let's see. Let's see if this works. How about that? Can you guys hear that? Boom. Ah, yes, Carla. Do you have the BDD's YouTube announcements on? Yes. Okay, now you can hear the music. I'm unclear what the hell happened with my sound setup. Well, I got a week to fix it. Here I go. Chair dancing for the rest of you who are still here. Sorry, Lord. Wait, what? What are we investigating? Oh, Cindy C says, for what it's worth, you usually play this a lot louder. Interesting. All right, you guys. You know it's that time. You need to leave.